Welcome to Story Chats at Inspy Romance. I'm Elizabeth Maddrey, and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Narelle Atkins.
I'm Valerie Comer.
Today, we are talking about musicians as main characters in CCR. There's scope here, whole bunch of scope. Musician is a really broad term. So maybe we need to narrow it down. Do we want to set some boundaries on what is considered a musician main character? Does it have to be their vocation in some way? Or like if you have a bookstore cashier who likes to sing while she rings people up, does that count as a musician or something in between? Where do you think you would draw the line as far as being a musician? Valerie, you want to go first?
Sure. I chose to analyze it as someone who's related to the music industry, so not necessarily the chief singer or guitar player, and who's getting paid.
Okay, so vocational.
So vocational, even if it's a part-time, like if it was a part-time gig or something, that would be okay too. But just somebody, not singing in the shower. For as fun as that would be.
Fair. Narelle, what about you?
Well, I can't imagine being a cashier singing unless I served a customer. That's just, I mean, I know there's music on in store, but I think that's a very interesting definition to look at.
I was grasping at straws there.
I think you should write that book.
Yeah.
Oh dear. But anyway, so I was probably going a slightly broader. I would say someone who performs in public, whether or not they get paid, knowing that musicians often do not get paid very well and often do gigs for free for a whole bunch of reasons. So I would say someone connected to a band or some kind of public performance situation where they have a level of musicianship that people are prepared to listen to. Okay. If that makes sense. Yeah.
That works.
That works because often you do get that struggling artist. It makes a good storyline, right? To have working toward that big break. So they weren't getting paid yet, but they're certainly trying to progress toward that where they're getting paid. Okay. All right. I'm with that. I do think we have to narrow it down away from the singing cashier. Unless she's just really hoping for her big break or something randomly.
And some producer comes along and he's just buying, I don't know, chocolates for his mother and there she is. Oh yeah, story. Let's go for it.
There you go. That plot idea is free to a good home. So anybody
I don't want
that?
It.
I don't.
But it could be fun.
All right. Do you have anything else that you feel like you want to refine or some commentary before we dive into books? I didn't feel like this sparked any amazing questions that I felt that needed to be discussed prior to books. So if maybe you guys do, to me, like musician makes it pretty clear what we're talking about. Narelle, did you have anything else?
Other than it can get a bit cliche. I think one of the things that I was probably looking for was books that didn't fall into that sort of cliche, which we'll probably get to because there are certain books that have sort of certain similar storylines that just come and come and come. So, yeah.
Really? I didn't notice. Okay, I did.
Valerie, you?
No, I think, having clarified of the singing cashier, which there you go, folks, that's your title, is... I think, we're good to go. Like I said, I took a teensy bit broader, but we'll get into that in the books.
Yeah. Okay. All right, then let's just dive in. And I just realized I run a timer when we do these so that we don't go like an hour and a half without me noticing, and I hadn't started it yet. So I'm going to do that now.
I only have like 6 or 7 books on my list, so there's no way we'd get to an hour.
Right. Yeah, exactly. The three of us don't have any trouble filling up time with conversations. So it's better to have an eye on the clock every now and then. So let's talk CCR with main characters. And I'm going to be obnoxious and go first just because I want to beat Narelle to the punch.
Oh, I know which book you're going to talk about. I will let you know if I haven't picked it.
Yeah, if you've paid any attention to any of our Story Chats episodes, then There Was You by Kara Isaac. had to make an appearance on the musician episode because Josh is a musician. He sings with the big band, not only at the church, but they do recordings and tour. And then she is also, it's sort of spoilery because it's part of her journey, but she is also a world-class violinist, which you do find out after a little bit. You don't know that right away, but that's okay. I just that doesn't ruin the book. So they're both musicians, and that is a very big part of who they are, and of the storyline as well, because of some things that have happened with her. She's sort of turned her back on music for a bit, and then learning to re-embrace that, maybe, will she, won't she, is part of her growth journey. So that was my first one, and I wanted to beat Narelle to the punch.
And you did beat me because, of course, it was on my list. But it was near the bottom of my list because I figured you'd probably talk about it earlier rather than later.
I left it off my list for the aforementioned reasons.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty obvious that it was going to come up. All right. So, Valerie, you want to do the next one?
I'm sure I can do that. My first pick is His Longing Heart by Jan Thompson, who's one of our Inspi Romance bloggers. And this is, this can fit in so many tropes and hooks and whatever. He is a struggling violinist who plays for a symphony. And he was on his way to bigger and better things, but his father passed away, leaving many debts in his wake. And so he's trying to take care of his mother as well as, and this is, you know, he's earning some money doing this, but he needs steady income. And then the heroine in this case is Brinley. She's an heiress. So we've got the rich people's trope there too, whose grandfather bequeathed her his collection of musical instruments. So Ivan's playing for an event that her father has put on, and he's playing on a borrowed violin. So pretty much as the story opens, you've got her coming into this event and she recognizes him. They have met before, and he locks eyes with her and he's playing a solo and he plays it for her, right? So they're the whole time he's playing, they're exchanging vibes across the room. So that was kind of fun. And she can't help but wonder what, you know, knowing that the violin he's playing on is not a top-notch one, and she knows what she's got in her collection, and she just can't help but wonder how much better it would sound on one of her violins. So anyways, one of her many violins.
One of her many. It's a good problem to have.
It is, yeah, not a problem, you know, the average person has for sure. But there's a lot of music in the story. I haven't read it for a few years. I read the original version, which it's been republished under a new title. But it's full of music and musicians. And
do you remember the old title?
No, not offhand. Okay. I didn't write it down, but I could look it up if you want.
And let me know. Notes. Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes. Okay. I feel like I've read that one, but the title did not trigger anything for me. So
because it's been newly retitled within the last, I want to say 6 months.
Yeah, she's retitling a lot of her books right now. So yeah, cool. All right, Narelle, what about you?
Well, interestingly, with this topic, the first book that came to mind doesn't actually fit CCR by memory, and that was The Last Shot by Amy Matayo, and that's about a musician where there's basically a shooting incident while there's a live concert performance going on. So if you're interested in that type of thing, go look it up, but I won't talk about it. I will, because my list is so big, I don't need to talk about things that aren't CCR today. So I will go to my next one, which is The Trouble with Love by Toni Shiloh. And so The Heroine Holiday is a platinum selling recording artist. And she's got two best friends, one of them who is a supermodel, the other one who is a ballerina, I think.
Yes.
And the supermodel is basically has acquired a stalker. So they're in this New York apartment. I think it's on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And the brother, so it's a brother's best friend's brother, trope. So it's her friend's brother is the hero in the book, and he's basically their bodyguard, but he's not actually a bodyguard. I'm trying to think what his occupation is. I have it written, he's a photographer. That's right. Yes. But he's effectively protecting the girls from this stalker. And this is a great series set in New York City. And I really enjoyed that particular story. So there's not a lot of music or performing in it, but it's definitely a key element in the story.
Yes. She's the daughter of a recording artist as well, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
yeah,
and that factors in. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great pick. For sure. I love that whole series. It's a cute little trilogy. We've talked about it before as well, I think.
What was the title again?
The Trouble with Love by Toni Shiloh.
Right.
Yeah. So is it Fame and Fortune, the series name? I
think
quote me on that.
Fame and Fortune. With the sort of the illustrated covers and the bright, bold colors.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so my second one is The Harmony of Love by Kimberly Ray Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
It's in her New Hope Fall series. It's one of the more recent releases. And in this one, the hero is, I think it's like a 2 or 4 member Christian band. He's one of those, I think it's 4. And it turns out, it starts out with him sort of reeling because one of the other band members has had an affair with the wife of another band member. And so the band is sort of in this chaos, and he's trying to avoid all the public outcry and the eyes looking, and, just the drama of all of that. So he goes home. I think it's home.
No,
whether it's
not
home. Is it not
no,
home?
it's not his home. He's sent there because
because of Leah.
Yeah, because the heroine has submitted some songs to his publisher, and the producer wants to get her to sing them.
Yeah, there we go. That one. I'm
there we go.
Using them all in my head here.
Yeah.
But Leah, I always really enjoyed as a character in the previous books because she is she sings, but she sort of keeps it to herself. She doesn't share it with anyone. And so she's very opposed to the idea of singing with him or doing anything. She likes to sell her songs. She's much more a songwriter than a singer. People talk about wanting to be a singer-songwriter. She doesn't want to do the singer part. She just wants to write the songs and sell them and have other people perform them. So, and
in my broader definition of musician, that is totally legit on its own, because she's making an income from music.
Yeah. So both of them qualify. Yay.
Yeah.
It's a fun story, and again, since it's further on in the series, it's always nice to see the other characters and where they are now and what's going on, and it's like getting back together with some friends. What's your next one, Valerie?
My next one is When You Look at Me by Pepper Basham. And I enjoyed the music in this one quite a lot. Henry Wright is a British composer who's come to the US to write original scores for his friend's movie. And he stays at an inn hosted by our heroine, Julia. And of course, he's drawn to her because, of course, it's a romance, right? She's a casual pianist, but she has plenty of rather odd original music from her great aunt, whose estate she's inherited. And so the fun thing about this book is there's a bit of a mystery involved, a bit of a historical mystery that where they are trying to figure out, and Henry joins her in this, as to what why this music is written the way it is. So that was really kind of fun for me. It was a very different kind of twist, I thought, and I enjoyed that story.
Narelle, what you got?
Spoiler alert,
Okay.
they fall in love.
What? Oh.
Okay, well, my next one is A Love Song for Kayla by Kimberly Rose
I like that one
Johnson.
too.
Yeah.
So this is actually a Valentine's story, and the heroine's a florist. But the hero in this book, his mum lives in this small town, and he's basically hiding out and escaping the paparazzi. And it's kind of a secret identity story because she doesn't realize who he is at the beginning as well. So that was a really cute, really fun story. I like that series. And that's so pretty much what I think with the sort of the rock star musician heroes, I'll always look for stories that resonate with some real life truth, because I think that you can glamorize a whole lot of characters, but it doesn't necessarily reflect reality. And I thought this particular one that Kimberly wrote has a lot of grounding in terms of he was dealing with some pretty big issues in terms of what was happening with the paparazzi and what was going on. And I thought she did, that was basically done very well. So I recommend that one.
That's a great book. I'd forgotten about that one, but I'm glad you reminded me of it because it's a good one.
Yeah.
It's really fun. So my next one is Since You've Been Gone by Tari Faris.
Yes.
The second sort of it's not the main romance, but the secondary romance. It's funny because it's sort of the same setup as Kimberly Ray Jordan's book. Christian rock star, his band had an issue, and his I don't think was as dramatic. But see, I get them mixed up in my head. But so he heads to Heritage and ends up helping Madison.
Yes, my favorite character in the series.
Paint and sort of get her father has passed away, and she's getting his house put together enough that she can sell it. So he's like, I'll paint or whatever, I'm handy. She doesn't know who he is because she's not into that whole Christian music scene. So that makes it kind of fun because again, we have that hidden identity aspect where you're sort of laying low and not capitalizing on your fame. And then it turns out that Madison actually has a really nice singing voice as well. And so watching him draw her out through music is just really lovely and sweetly romantic. I
enjoyed that as well.
Yeah.
That was on my list.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. As I said, I have a long list. It's all good. I'm crossing things off now.
I have a long list as well.
Excellent. All right, Valerie, what's your next one?
Well, my next one is by an author that you guys have probably never heard of. Her name is Elizabeth Maddrey, and the book is called Luna Rosa. And I probably spelled that or said that wrong because I am not Italian. But Nick Carter is a piano tuner and music teacher and a closet composer. He doesn't want anyone to know that he sits in his apartment at night and writes music. And Louisiana Chalfant is a diva of a symphony pianist, and she's only there for the season. And she's like, at first, the diva part, insulted that anybody would think that piano tuner guy could actually play. But as she gets to know him, hey, it's a romance. Spoiler alert, they fall in love.
So what's funny
about problems.
What's funny about that book is I named him. We had to have some sort of Italian sounding first name, but I did not choose his last name because we were collaborating, and the set of siblings that from the American Family were Heather Gray and Alexa Verde, and I all had siblings, and so they chose Carter, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. And so I wanted something that could be shortened to something American, not super Italian, because he wasn't embracing that super Italian thing. So I'm like, Niccolo is good. Marion had given us a list of some Italian first names that were, good. And it never even occurred to me that Nick Carter was in the Backstreet Boys. So I on the road before, I'm like, why does that sound so familiar? Oh, that's why, because Nick Carter is actually a real rock star. Oops. So yeah, Nick Carter, no relation to the Backstreet Boys whatsoever.
So this was part of what was the name of the series?
A Tuscan Legacy.
Right.
Yeah.
multi-author
Yeah.
series.
Yeah.
For those
Yeah.
wanting to look it up.
Anyway, but there's no Backstreet Boys. If you're a Backstreet Boy hater, don't worry. We're not channeling the Backstreet Boys in that book. It was totally accidental. So there you have it. Whose turn is it? Narelle's turn, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
I had Luna Rosa on my list, but
Do you need me to loan you some books? I mean, I've got more.
No, I still have a couple more. So that I remember. So the next one I'll talk about is After the Rain by Brandy Bruce. So I won't talk too much about the story because I have mentioned this particular book more than once on the podcast. So it's the sequel story to The Last Summer, and our heroine in the book, and I won't say her name in case you haven't read The Last Summer, because it gives it away, because it was a love triangle. She's basically recovering from being the loser of the love triangle in The Last Summer. And I really enjoyed this story because it really, the emotional depth that I think that Brandy Bruce went to, where she actually really dug into the heroine's character and really got to the really deep emotional pain that she was experiencing. And so she's moved to Denver. She's a radio announcer, and she's called Miss Lonely Heart. So she's sort of really publicly pouring out all her angst as people call in with their questions to Miss Lonely Heart. And the hero in the book, his day job, he's a worship pastor at a church, but at night he does gigs and he's a singer. And so she ends up in Denver at one of the pubs or bars or whatever, and he starts singing, and she just really, really connects with him with the way he's singing. And so it's a really lovely romance, and it's really a mending a broken heart and falling in love type of story. But I really loved it. But you need to read The Last Summer first to really appreciate After the Rain.
That was going to be my question. Do you really have to? Is it just from the standpoint because you will appreciate why she's brokenhearted, or do you feel like, is there information that you need to have? You really, because like I have no burning desire to read The Last Summer, but one sounds really interesting and I would like to read it.
I think it's because I think, if you don't, because it's like when you read a series, and particularly if you've got a character that's been in the earlier books and they've had a really hard time and things have gone wrong, and you've actually got that lived experience of reading about in the previous book, it doesn't come across as melodramatic. So if you were to pick up After the Rain and with no concept of what's happened in the past, it could turn you off the heroine. That's probably all I would say, is that it'd be harder to empathize with her if you hadn't read the first book. So I obviously can't read it like that because I read the first
back
book.
in time and read it without having read the first one.
I can't erase the first one from my memory. So as soon as I read the first paragraph, I'm there with her, remembering how I cried for her in the previous book. So that's all I would say, is that if it comes across as a bit more angsty than you might expect a CCR to start, it's because the backstory from The Last Summer actually does really beautifully set that up.
Okay, great. Yeah. That's fair. All right, so we can do one more. We got tons of time. My next one, I've got
two more.
Excellent. My next one is Butterflies on Breezes by Valerie Comer. Logan is a pianist and worship leader. And I went back and forth because that's not his main job, is it though? So no. I was like, well, but to me, that was such a big part of who Logan is, that I figured it counted. So maybe I'm cheating by sticking it in there, but it's so much a part of who he is, and who, when I think of him, I think of his music. So I'm like, it counts, and it's a fabulous book. So it's the second in the Urban Farm Fresh series. And there's lots of Logan actually in the first one as well, Secrets of Sunbeams. Lots of his piano playing in the first one as well. So, just start the series at the beginning and you'll be good.
He tends to sit and play at the piano while talking to people.
Yeah. That's my next one. Valerie.
Okay, then I would like to talk about the KWESTT series by Clari Dees, and that's KWESTT, not how you would think when you heard the word. The series starts with Some Enchanted Evening. And the whole series goes through all the members of this quest band. But the first one is about the K guy, Kellen. He needs a break from his touring group. And so he goes incognito. Boy, there is a theme here, isn't there? To a rural campground in Missouri where he's just gonna just hide out in his tent for a while and ignore the rat race. And turns out, surprise, that the heroine who runs the campground is a big fan of his, but she doesn't know who he is. So there's all of that drama, but it sets up a really fun series in which in the first book, you don't see as much of the band touring, but in the subsequent books, there's a lot of that, of them on stage and in the bus and stopping in this city and that city. And so it's a fun series. It's a few years old now, but I really, really enjoyed it. And I snapped up every book as soon as they came out. So.
Narelle?
Well, I'm going to talk about the book I'm currently reading. When I'm looking for comfort reads as opposed to comfort food, I'll often go to CCR novellas because they're short, they're sweet, they're light, they're happy. They're not going to make me think too much, and that really lovely, pleasant escape. So I'll go to books I've read before. So I'm currently rereading Kinsale Kisses by Elizabeth Maddrey because I just wanted to go away to Ireland. And escape Australia. Yeah. So in this particular book, the hero is where am I? I'm looking at the wrong place. Of course. Yeah, he was an IT software engineer or something, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yes. And then he ends up in Ireland and where he's a traveling musician effectively. So he does gigs in the Irish pubs and stuff. And she's over there. She's effectively her parents passed. I'm trying to remember the history. My mind's going blank. And her aunt has a B&B in Ireland. So she's over there in Ireland for that reason. And so I won't talk too much about the story because when you talk about novellas, you kind of give half the story away once you start talking. Yeah. But it's a favorite one that I've gone back to reread. Yay. Yes.
I agree that right now with hello COVID, that books that take me places are higher on my want to read list as well. So yeah, that's a really good choice for that. Getting to go someplace. We're talking in the evenings these days, like, where do we want to go when we can?
Anywhere.
So, yeah.
Anywhere.
We can make a quick trip to Ireland now.
There we go. So I actually didn't have any, but then while Valerie was talking, I thought of one. Sort of, but I'm not entirely sure. And so I was trying to sneakily Google on my phone. It probably looks really weird, but I was listening. I believe the Montana, but see, it's probably romantic suspense too. See, because Hallee Bridgeman has a romantic suspense series that's all about a band, but it's romantic suspense. So I wasn't going to talk about them. But then it just occurred to me, Susan May Warren's Montana Marshals are also romantic suspense. And it might not be that one. It might be a different one of hers. There's one that she has where they're providing security for a band that tours with rodeos, and there are some explosions and they're trying to hide. And I don't remember. I just remember there was a country duo that they were protecting and falling in love with as far.
Minor detail.
Yeah. But interestingly, we haven't mentioned any books from Nashville. Like I think nearly anything set in Nashville is music. I'm thinking Rachel Houck a few years ago had a series related to the music industry and singers based in Nashville. I can't remember the names. It was 2 books, maybe 3. Yeah. But there's a lot of books connected to Nashville as well.
Yeah. I had a long list, but then as I started to look at them, I'm like, oh, that's romantic suspense. Scratch. That's romantic suspense. Scratch. So yeah, it was tricky for me because.
So what is it about musicians that are suspenseful? I guess that's an interesting question.
I think it's just like the groupies, and then there's there's the jealousy because with the super rich and the fame and fortune, so you've got stalkers, or you've got hidden secrets because of your real persona that you have on stage versus the who you are, that kind of thing.
That could be.
We can do one more. I can't, but Valerie and Narelle can.
Can I? Yay.
One more.
Well, Val
Okay,
can have
one
two
more.
because I think I'm pretty much done. If she wants to
Okay.
talk about two, she can.
No, I've just got one more.
Yeah.
And that is Come to Me Alive by Leah Atwood. And again, it's not a newer book. It's the first in a 3-book series, but it more follows the guy's family than his band. So that's why it wasn't higher on my list, although I really enjoyed it. Bryce Landry is a hot music star based in Nashville.
Oh, hey.
Yeah.
And he takes some time off from his rock band when he finds out he's a father. So there's your secret baby trope.
Yeah.
And quits drinking and becomes a Christian. And he's just like, he just doesn't know what to do with his career. So it's not quite as active in his touring as what some of the other books might be, but he retreats to his prior girlfriend, who's now deceased, to her hometown with his little girl, to her parents, right? The grandparents can have some input, and meets Sophie Thatcher, who's a first grade teacher at the park. And then as she's sitting there, he realizes that she's listening to one of his songs. Oh, do you like that musician? Well, I haven't really listened to all that much, but I really like this song because blah, 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 is in the opening. So it was a lot of fun. And there's quite a bit of his life on tour and stuff, even though most of it is taking place in this small town when he's actually not on tour. But yeah, I'm done. That's all my list.
Okay. No more Narelle?
No, because my mind's starting to go blank. If you think about too many stories at once, they all start to meld together.
There's a lot of similarities between some of these as well. You know, something went wrong with the band. They're now off, and the girl doesn't know who he is. And how come we don't have, did we have any with the female being the main artist?
Yes.
I know
The Trouble with Love.
Yeah, The Trouble with Love. And
because usually it seems the other way.
Yeah. In Susan May Warren's, the girl is the artist because the guy has to be the protecting bodyguard guy. So
there would be a flip.
Yeah.
He could be, 5 foot nothing.
Little
89
Napoleonic,
pounds, wet, and be
Napoleonic rock star.
Martial artist.
But that's the Bodyguard movie. That's the Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner movies where she's the recording artist and he protects her.
Very much.
That sort of spawned many years ago a bunch of romantic suspense bodyguard trope books came from that movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Do any final musician hero/heroine thoughts?
I'd like to see more unique twists. Pardon?
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, more unique twists, and I think you can see the theme of that. They often will go a certain storyline will get repeated and repeated as we're getting them all mixed up. But I like to see unique twists on these things. Like if a story, I won't go necessarily to pick up a musician book. That's not going to draw me to the story. But if there's a unique twist or something interesting or different, then I'll pick it up.
I think that's why I liked the Quest series by Clari Dees, because it follows, the drummer and the piano player and the violinists and stuff. And each one has a very different personality and background. And so even though the setting is very similar, they're actually fairly individual stories. So that's something you can do with a series that's hard to do in a one-off.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so if you have thoughts on a musician, hero, or heroine that we missed in a book, let us know what that is in the comments, either on YouTube or the Story Chats Facebook page, either one. And in the meantime, we are awfully glad you were here with us. Thank you for joining us. You can find out all the information you need about the podcast at inspiromance.com/storychats. And if you do watch on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. And we'll see you next week. In the meantime, don't forget to fall in love with a good book. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.